cheating on his girlfriend with his legal wife. Michael wasn't just nervous. He was scared as hell. He'd been pacing back and forth in the hallway outside his ex-wife's apartment for almost 20 minutes. He needed to talk to her about this ridiculous situation, and he feared making her very angry. He desperately wanted to smoke a cigarette. It used to help calm his nerves before he quit smoking over a year ago. He thought about just walking out of the hallway and going to buy a pack of cigarettes, but knew that if he did that, he'd make more excuses not to come back here later. He wanted to be a man about this and confess everything to her. But at the same time, he realized that a 20-minute walk down the hallway wasn't going to make him look good. His ex-wife Kim was not an angry person. She was always calm and at times very sweet. She did get a little angry at times, but no more than most people. The only time he had ever seen his wife really pissed off was when he had admitted to her that not only was he having an affair with his secretary, but she had gotten him pregnant. Kim had yelled things at him that he never thought he'd hear from a woman, but he knew he deserved it all. Shortly afterward, they filed for divorce. Kim was unhappy with herself for believing after his previous cheating that Michael would be faithful to her. He had cheated on her years ago when they were first dating. She had let it go because they weren't too serious about each other at the time. And she knew about him cheating on the woman he'd dated before her, so the signs were there from the beginning. But she was in love, and thought he loved her enough not to cheat. When it came time to discuss the divorce process, Kim agreed to do it quickly and amicably. Mostly because she was so angry with him that she wanted to end the marriage and move on with her life. Michael was very lucky that she wanted to end it so easily like that. Most women would have tried to send him to the cleaners. Kim didn't want any alimony from Michael. She was making good money, so she didn't need any extra financial help. They kept all their personal belongings and agreed to split their finances in half, including selling their house and even splitting their furniture. That was 18 months ago. He had hardly heard from her since then. Now he needed to talk to her urgently. Finally, he managed to motivate himself and rang the doorbell. He felt like running away, but he forced himself to stay. Kim opened the door, so it was too late to run. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you about something. Can I come in?" Sure. I'll make us some coffee." The fact that she didn't get angry when she saw him seemed like a good sign to Michael. At the beginning of their divorce proceedings, she'd gotten mad at him over every little thing. Now she seemed fine and was friendly. His ex-wife stood in the doorway wearing a bandana on her head, blue overalls and a pink t-shirt covered in paint stains, with long brown hair. She was 32 years old, a year younger than Michael. She also had a gorgeous body with large breasts under those clothes. He had seen her like this many times before when she painted her pictures. She was an accountant by her main profession, but she also painted paintings part-time. He remembered how good she was. Many of her works had ended up in galleries, and some had even sold for good money. Michael was lucky that Kim had just brewed coffee shortly before he showed up. She remembered that he liked a little cream in his coffee with 1 sugar cube, and that's what she made him. Michael ate the 3 sugars in confusion, but he wasn't going to discuss it. He was counting on a conversation in a friendly manner. They were in the kitchen, sitting at their old kitchen table that Kim had gotten in the division of property. "I miss this kitchen table," Michael began from afar. "Yes, that table looks good in the kitchen. I didn't want to part with it." Kim even smiled. "Remember what we did when we got it?" Michael grinned. "Yeah, of course." Kim was referring to how they made love on that table before the meal. He was surprised that she had brought up something like that. He took it as another positive sign that things were good between them. If she was willing to conjure up such good memories, she definitely built back from their failed marriage. "How are Lucy and the kids doing?" Kim asked. Michael was surprised again. He hadn't thought that Kim would be quiet enough to ask how Lucy was doing. It was Lucy, she was his secretary with whom he had an affair and got her pregnant. Michael was now living with Lucy, and they were raising their children together. During the divorce, Kim had called Lucy that cheating bitch, but now she called her by her first name, which struck Michael as another good sign. "It's okay. Thanks for asking," Michael said. "Yes, she's pregnant again, about 2 months along, and we plan to get married as soon as possible." "Congratulations," Kim said, smiling. "I'm very happy for you." Things were going much better than Michael had expected. It seems that his fears were in vain. "You look good. Very calm." "You mean compared to the nightmare I was in when we got divorced?" "There was a reason for the nightmare. I cheated, and you were rightfully angry with me." "Well, after it was all closed and over, I decided there was no point in being angry. I needed to move on with my life and get back to being the positive person I used to be." "I'm glad to hear that," Michael said sincerely. "So, to what do I owe the pleasure of seeing you?" "There's a problem with our divorce. Instead of calling about it, I thought it would be best to come here and talk." "Is this the tax issue we had a couple years ago? Didn't we deal with all of that then?" "No. It was resolved, and all of our joint taxes are in order," Michael assured me. "Then what's the problem?" Michael sipped some of his coffee and set the cup on the table. "We're still married," he blurted out. Kim was just finishing her coffee when he said that. She almost choked. "You what?" "We're still married," he repeated. "I don't know exactly what happened, but I thought I'd sent the papers, but it turns out they'd been in my file cabinet all along. So we're still legally married." Kim just stared at him for a long time without saying a word. It made Michael much more nervous than before. "You said you'd take care of everything," Kim said slowly. "Yes, that's what I said. We agreed on a very easy divorce. Split our assets and we'll move on with our lives. No alimony or any issues that might drag this out longer than it should." "Yeah, I remember that." "And you, being the kind of amazing lawyer you are," she said, using her fingers to make air quotes, "you said you'd make the paperwork easy and I wouldn't have to worry about anything." "It's like that. I'm sorry." Another long silence hung between them. Then, quite unexpectedly, Kim splashed her coffee in his face. The coffee was pretty hot, and it burned his lips a little. "You asshole!" Kim continued unabated. Michael let her yell so they could discuss what they needed to do next. But it took Kim a while to calm down and stop. "I deserve all of this, but we need to discuss what to do next." Kim calmed down and assessed the situation. She felt that being angry was not going to lead to anything good. She had been angry with him for a long time after the divorce, and she didn't like what she had become, so she had worked hard to move on and get back to normal. Kim took a deep breath and mentally recited a mantra that helped her relax. "I'm sorry for the outburst. I thought I was out of it all now. We'll just file the papers again, and I can accept that we'll stay married for a few more months until this all goes away. It's no big deal." "It's not over." "What else?" she shouted before she could calm down again. "So what's the problem?" "Lucy and I want to get married very soon. By that I mean in about 6 weeks. It's all planned out, and we can't put it off any longer." "So, what you're saying is, you want a quicker divorce. How do we do that?" "There's one way, if we get an annulment." Kim knew what that meant. An annulment would make their marriage null and void. It would essentially mean it never existed. "We were already going to have an easy divorce. So that shouldn't be an obstacle," Michael said. "It's pretty much the same thing we should have done the first time." "But you managed to forget to file the papers," Kim snapped at him. "I can't figure it out for myself." Kim didn't like the idea of claiming that their marriage didn't exist. It had been a big part of her life, and now he was asking her to sign a legal document saying it had never happened. But if she really wanted to move on with her life, she should do it, even if there were misgivings about it. "Okay, let's do it," Kim said solemnly. Michael was relieved and took a big, deep breath. Despite the coffee and insults spewed at him, everything had gone well for him. I'll start the paperwork and be back tomorrow to sign it. That's fine, she replied. They got up and headed for the door. Michael apologized again, and she just accepted it like she accepted everything else. At the door, they said goodbye and even hugged each other. It was then that Michael made his biggest mistake, when during that hug he slid his hand down her back and grabbed her ass. Kim raised a worried look at him. Why are you grabbing my ass? Yeah, I think, unintentionally, automatically. She took a few steps away from Michael. This is crossing all lines. I'm so sorry. I honestly don't know what came over me. Let's just get this over with so we can both move on, she said, giving him an angry look. Absolutely. They said their goodbyes, and Kim slammed the door behind him the next day. Michael prepared the papers for the annulment and made sure that everything was processed quickly so that he could prepare for his wedding to Lucy in peace. He wasn't going to let anything get in the way of marrying her, especially his own mistakes. As he prepared the paperwork, he kept thinking about how he had grabbed his ex-wife's ass. While he did enjoy the feeling, he brushed it off as a momentary error of judgment. Yes, there were some residual feelings between them that may have played a part in it, but that shouldn't mean anything. He was with Lucy now, the mother of his children. He was in love with her. He had left his ex-wife for her. Even if she hadn't gotten pregnant, he was eventually going to keep Kim. The pregnancy had only sped things up a bit. He also thought a lot about annulling the marriage. He pretended in front of Kim that it wasn't a big deal to him, but deep down he was upset at the thought. Sure, it would solve a few problems that were arising, mostly due to his own mistakes, but he didn't like the idea of making his marriage to Kim null and void. Regardless, it was a big part of his life, but it had to be done. He had no other choice. Lucy was already angry with him when he admitted to her that he was still legally married to Kim. She was willing to forgive him, just so long as he would work things out. Lucy was already at odds with her family because she got pregnant by a married man and ruined his marriage. Then they didn't get married right away when Michael got divorced, at least when they thought he was divorced, which caused her another problem. That was his fault too. He convinced her that he wasn't ready to get married so soon after the divorce. Instead, they just started living together. It wasn't until after the twins were born that he realized he had taken too long to marry Lucy. He really loved her and wanted to do right by her. Now they were finally going to get married, and his slip-up would cause her even more problems with her family. They didn't know that she was pregnant again. They were just happy that she was finally getting married. He didn't want to upset her, especially now, pregnant. The last thing he wanted to do was do something that would stress Lucy out, that might harm the fetus. All he had to do was get Kim to sign the annulment papers. It would be quicker than getting a divorce in this state, and with his connections, he'd be able to get everything finalized. After that, everything would go smoothly. He got to Kim's apartment later that evening. She let him in, and they sat down on the living room couch to talk things over. Kim was again dressed in jeans, this time with a black t-shirt that was tight and emphasized her breasts. Michael couldn't help but admire her body, but tried to immediately turn his attention to the task at hand. Here are the papers, he said, placing the annulment papers on the coffee table. I signed my part. You just need to sign. Kim quickly looked over the annulment papers. She found that they were no different than the original divorce papers, except that those papers stated that she had never been married. She held the pen in her hand, ready to sign, but suddenly felt doubt. Is there something wrong? I don't know, she said hesitantly. Sign here. He pointed to the signature line. I know where to sign. Don't make an idiot out of me. She got up from the couch and went into the kitchen. Michael was stunned and followed her. Kim pulled a beer out of the refrigerator and greedily began to drink. Can I have a beer? Michael stammered. If you try to grab the bottle, I'll smash it over your head, she said angrily. Michael expected her to calm down like yesterday, but this time she really lost her temper. Is something wrong? Everything is wrong here, she shouted. First you cheat on me with your secretary, a total cliché, by the way, and she gets pregnant. Then, after we've negotiated an easy divorce and I'm finally getting on with my life, you show up, tell me we're still married, and ask me to get an annulment so you can marry that cheating woman. Michael felt his business was bad. Kim started calling Lucy a cheater again. Then, right before you leave, you grab my ass. Not just lightly grabbing my ass, you give it a good squeeze. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me, he said nervously. And now you're acting like none of this matters. I feel bad, but we need to... I know about you and Jennifer, she interrupted. You slept with her when we were married. She confessed everything to me after the divorce. Michael remained silent. Jennifer was one of Kim's closest friends whom he had seduced when she was having marital problems. There was no point in denying it. You never told me you knew. After the divorce, I wanted to move on with my life, so I decided to let it go. But now I want to know, besides Jennifer and that secretary, how many other women have you had? Michael took a deep breath before making his confession. Besides them, there were 2 others. Kim took another big sip of her beer. And today, when I was talking to one of my friends, it turns out that a couple months ago, she saw you entering the hotel with another woman. So you and Lucy are cheating? Yes, I am, Michael admitted, bowing his head in shame. He admitted that he had cheated on Lucy several times. You're an asshole, Kim said. I'm not signing your papers. What? He fell over. You heard me. I'm not signing anything. Now get out of my house. But why? Why drag this out any further? Because I know it will hurt you as much as you hurt me, and don't act like you don't deserve it. Kim, please, he whimpered. Okay, I'm a cheating asshole and you do deserve revenge, but don't do this. It won't solve anything. It'll hurt you, too. Not as much as it will hurt you. Another sip of beer. Do you think this will affect your relationship with Lucy? You're not going to tell her, are you? No, I wouldn't. It might confuse things. I'll just sign the usual divorce papers that take months to finalize. Then, by state law, there's a 3-month waiting period before you can remarry. So, my revenge is to just do what was planned before, get a regular divorce, only this time you can't remarry for at least the next 6 months. I'll get my revenge on both of you. Michael was stunned. Kim had thought of every way to screw him over. He wasn't even sure if Lucy would ever forgive him after what had happened. Please, Kim, I'll do anything you want. I'll give you anything you want. Just say the word, but please don't do that. Anything? She asked with a devilish grin. Michael didn't like the look in her eyes. The only time he'd ever seen one was in a courtroom, when the opposing counsel had something important to use in a case. I hope it's within reason, but yes, I'll do anything, he replied nervously. He anxiously waited for the continuation. Kim finished her beer and set the bottle on the table. I want you to make love to me. What? Michael was dumbfounded. I only want you to make love to me. Michael was stunned. He expected her to ask for money or some kind of favor, but lovemaking with her... Are you serious? Like a heart attack, she replied mockingly. I can't do that. I can't cheat on Lucy. He shook his head. Suddenly he realized the ridiculousness of his words. I mean, of course I've cheated, but I can't do it with you. You mean you can't cheat on your girlfriend with your legal wife? There was some strange logic in what she had just said that Michael couldn't refute. But why would you want to do that? Well, first of all, I miss our love, Kim admitted. Despite everything, you know that lovemaking was fantastic. Michael nodded and smiled. It was fantastic. But I also like the idea of repaying you both, she continued. I'll make you cheat on your girlfriend with me, and I'll know I used her man behind her back. I have to admit that's not a bad plan. Michael smirked. Do you really want me to cheat on Lucy? With you? Don't forget, I had you before she did, so I have more right to make love to you. I don't know if I can do it. You can do it, you can do it. You tried yesterday when you grabbed my ass, she reminded me. You might want to try to convince yourself that it was just a simple mistake, but deep down you were hoping to make love to me. Maybe you're right, he said solemnly. So you're a cheater and you're probably going to cheat on Lucy anyway, she continued. So why not cheat on her with your own wife, the woman you're legally supposed to sleep with? Michael didn't bother to ask for a beer. He just walked over to the refrigerator to grab a bottle, and Kim didn't mind. He took a small sip, pondering Kim's offer. She was right. He was a cheater and would likely cheat again. And, legally speaking, he hadn't committed adultery by sleeping with his own wife. Besides, if just making love to Kim once was all she wanted and it would move things along, he'd get quite a bit out of it. Okay, it was a deal. Great, Kim smirked. She walked out of the kitchen, taking off her shirt on the way, exposing her white half-cup bra that supported her perfect breasts. Wait, you mean right now? Why not? I have to sign these papers, don't I? Michael knew she was right. He finished his beer and followed Kim into the bedroom. Once there, they began kissing and stripping each other of their clothes until they were completely naked. They both had forgotten how great kissing was and were enjoying it. It took Michael a little longer to get Kim out of his mind, compared to how it usually was with Lucy. And they made love like they used to. Damn, that was good, Kim gasped. Yeah, Lucy taught you pretty well. Yeah, credit to her, Michael said modestly. I should thank that cheating bitch. Or should I just leave her alone for now, with a sly smile? And yes, I will call her cheater. Michael took a breath. That's fine with me for now, but now it's your turn. I missed you too. I missed you, Michael said. Michael didn't have to worry about birth control since he knew Kim couldn't have children. When they were done, they hugged each other, Kim's head resting on Michael's shoulder. She missed this pose of theirs, a pose of gentle afterglow. It was intense, Kim said with difficulty. Yes, the love between us has always been good, but this was amazing. After a while, they got out of bed and got dressed. Michael used the bathroom to clean himself up and be ready to go home to Lucy. She might have asked why he had been with Kim for so long, but he had already come up with some valid excuses. When he walked out into the living room, Kim was just signing the annulment papers. Here you go. Just like I promised. It's like our marriage never existed. No matter what it says, our marriage did exist, and I'm glad it did. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Kim handed him the papers. Michael needed 2 glasses of water to feel better after an intense lovemaking session. Kim walked him to the front door, and he was about to leave when she said one last thing. Before you go, I just wanted you to know that I don't regret what we just did at all. In fact, I enjoyed it. In spite of everything, I enjoyed it too. That's good to hear, because if you want, we can keep seeing each other. Michael's eyebrows went up in surprise. Are you serious? It's certainly not necessary. It's only an option if we both want to. So I can have an affair with my ex-wife, who I originally cheated on with the woman who is now my fiancée? This question seemed confusing to Michael, but he was sure he had phrased it correctly. Let's face it, you're going to cheat on her again anyway, so you might as well do it with me. But I'm just giving you the opportunity. If you say no, I won't have a problem with it. Kim was surprisingly calm. How long do you want to keep this affair going? Not forever, she assured him. Maybe until I want to get serious with someone else, or you decide not to cheat on your wife anymore, or for any other reason. Michael was at a loss for words. He could not have envisioned such a development. He had come to fix things to marry Lucy, but now he was getting a repeat of the same thing that had ruined his first marriage, with the same women but in reverse. He was shocked, embarrassed, and excited by this possibility. So you're going to be my mistress? Kim thought about it for a moment and then smiled. Yeah, I guess that's exactly what I'm thinking. I kind of like the idea of being a mistress. At least that's the way it is in this situation. Michael was surprised that she was so keen on the idea of having this affair. Surprisingly, Kim didn't seem to be stressed at all. "Come on, it's pretty fun to make love to an ex," Kim laughed. "I was looking forward to saying that as we made love." "It does sound funny if you say it out loud," Michael said. "Well, I'm not going to say yes to your proposal, but I'm also not going to say no. I'm just going to leave that option open, and we'll see." Fair enough. They said their goodbyes and hugged. They grabbed each other's asses, only this time there was no awkwardness. Michael got the marriage annulment processed very quickly, much to Lucy's relief. They got married with no problems, and later that year they had their third child. Things were going very well for Michael and Lucy, but eventually Michael got that itch he used to get when he wanted to be with other women. He felt really bad. He didn't want to do anything to ruin his current marriage. So he went to Kim, who was quite happy to help him with his desires. Michael had an affair with Kim for the next 5 years, and Lucy didn't suspect a thing. Kim always tried to help him be careful, not so much for his sake, but to keep making amazing love. Eventually, Kim met the man for herself and fell in love again. When that happened, she naturally ended her relationship with Michael. He admitted that he would miss the time they spent together, but he was also happy for her. Kim and her new man moved in a few months later, and by then Michael felt it was time to call it quits before it got out of his control. Even when he was tempted, he never cheated on Lucy again. Over the years, Michael and Lucy added 3 more children to their family. As far as he knew, Lucy never suspected anything about his affair. The end.